One of the core teachings that we find in Buddhism is to understand the pain and suffering as a part of life, and also to see the suffering and the pain as it is. But this is easier said than done, okay? Because most of the time, when we go through painful feelings and painful situations in life, we used to worry, we used to become frustrated, and we fall down mentally. But the Buddha offers us a different way of thinking to see this pain and to see this suffering, to use that experience to add more meaning to our life. So today, let's talk about how can we move through painful situations in life according to Buddhism. The Buddha gives a wonderful simile for this. The Buddha says, suppose they were to strike a man with a dart, and then they would strike him immediately afterwards with a second dart, so that the man would feel a feeling caused by two darts, two arrows. When the uninstructed worldling is being contacted by a painful feeling, he feels two feelings: bodily, physical feeling, and the mental feeling, or physical suffer and mental suffer. The reason why we worry in the face of this unavoidable suffering in our life is we expect a life without suffering. But life itself has the intrinsic nature and inherent nature of suffering and pain and unsatisfied nature. So what Buddha teaches us is to see it as a part of life. Do not try to forget it. Do not try to run away from it. See it as a part of your life that always persists throughout your life. And the Buddha says that when an ordinary person goes through these feelings, to escape from this pain, what he does is he seeks delight in sensual pleasures. He chases behind sensual pleasures to distract himself. So that is the normal reaction, isn't it? Normally, when someone goes through a painful feeling, when someone goes through a difficult time in his life, they chase behind sensual pleasure to distract their brains, distract their mind from that pain. For an example, when someone is struggling in their life, if someone has pain in his mind, sometimes some people use alcohol. Some people distract them with alcohol. Some people distract them with sexual misconduct. Some people distract themselves with consuming more and more social media. These days, it is happening more and more. Okay. For an example, if you feel any pain in your life, just check your behavior. People use more and more social media. Why? To distract themselves with that pain, from that pain. But Buddha does not say that chasing behind the sensual pleasure is completely wrong. What Buddha says is that chasing behind sensual pleasure does not solve your problem completely. Why is that? So the more we chase behind sensual pleasure, the more we suffer because of the unsatisfied nature. So that is why the Buddha said, chasing behind sensual pleasure does not solve your problem completely. Why it does not solve the problem completely? Because whenever we are being struck by a miserable feeling or a painful feeling in life, now we need something material, an external source to distract ourselves all the time. Now, this does not help us to focus on ourselves and find the true nature of this problem and solve it once and forever. Okay, so that is why the Buddha said, chasing behind sensual pleasure will not completely solve your problem. Instead of chasing behind the sensual pleasure to distract ourselves, the Buddha says that look at the pain as a part of life that is unavoidable. And the Buddha says that pain is an inevitable condition in life, but worrying is an option that we choose. Worrying is always optional. So the Buddha used a special term to these ups and downs in life. He called it 8 worldly conditions. The Buddha said that these 8 worldly conditions prevails in this world every time. The Buddha says, gain and loss, dispute and fame, blame and praise, and pleasure and pain. These 8 worldly conditions revolve around the world, and the world revolves around these 8 worldly conditions. So these 8 worldly conditions are like the 2 faces of the same coin. We cannot separate it. So the Buddha says that do not worry too much, more than needed, about these painful situations in life. Rather than worrying about it, we always have the choice to stay away from worrying, because pain is an inevitable condition, but worrying is an optional thing, is a choice that we make in our life. So keep this amazing sentence in your mind. Pain is inevitable, worrying is optional. Keep that in your mind and stay strong, stay safe. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. Today, from this video, let's talk about the benefits of practicing mindfulness and how mindfulness benefits for our daily Buddhist practice. Now, what should be practiced in Buddhism as Buddhist practice is Sila, Samadhi, and Prajna. These are the 3 practices that we practice in all through Buddhism. In whatever the state we are in, we practice these 3 practices. Sila is the virtuous behavior or moral conduct. And we've discussed about Sila in a separate video. If you haven't watched it, and if you don't know what Sila is, you can watch it right here. So Sila is basically the ethical and the moral conduct, or in another word, virtuous behavior, or being disciplined by your body and by your words. So mindfulness helps us to practice Sila in a good way, in a more productive way. And also the second practice is Samadhi. Samadhi is the mental concentration, being able to be in practice the one-pointedness in our mind, and to practice that tranquility in our mind. It's called the Samadhi. And final practice is Prajna. Prajna means the wisdom, understanding about the true nature of life, and fully understanding about the 3 marks of existence: the anicca, the impermanence; dukkha, that's the suffering; and anatta is the non-self. So how mindfulness helps to practice these things. First of all, let's talk about how mindfulness benefits to practice the Sila. Now, Sila is the virtuous behavior, as we said before. So before talking about these things, let's learn about what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is the practice of or ability to be fully aware in this present moment with more wholesome mindset. When you practice mindfulness, it is really, really easy to practice Sila. Why? Because Sila is all about being disciplined from your body and from your words. So if you're mindful about your bodily actions, what you are going to do, okay, and what you are going to say, then you keep a good gatekeeper to your actions. Now, sati is often referred to as mindfulness in Buddhism, and the Buddha said that sati is like a gatekeeper to your mind, or the mindfulness is like a gatekeeper to your mind. So what does a gatekeeper do? The gatekeeper watches and recognizes what comes in or who comes in and who goes out a certain place. So practicing mindfulness is like keeping a gatekeeper to your actions and your words and your thoughts. So if you are aware of what you are doing, right, and if you know before what you're doing, and if you know what you're doing before doing, and if you know what you're saying before saying, by being mindful and by being aware, then it is very easy to control the unwholesome actions and unwholesome thoughts and unwholesome words that occurs in our life. And this helps us to be disciplined from our body, to be disciplined from our words, and will be easy to practice the virtuous behavior and our practice of Sila will be even more productive. So that is how the mindfulness helps us to practice Sila. And also the second practice, how mindfulness helps us to practice Samadhi or the concentration. Now, when you take the 4 foundations of mindfulness, there are 4 foundations of mindfulness according to Buddhism. Being mindful about your body is one foundation. That's the first foundation. Second one is being mindful about your feelings. And the third one is being mindful about your mental actions or the thoughts. And then being mindful about the mental objects, right? Like such as concepts and ideas and thoughts. So these 4 foundations of mindfulness, in the beginning, the Buddha teaches us how to be tranquilized. Okay, how to concentrate your mind. For an example, if you refer to Kayanupassana, the first practice of Kayanupassana is Anapanasati, or the breathing meditation, being mindful about the breathing. So the Buddha doesn't dive into the deep end at first to realize the true nature or the impermanence nature of the breath. The first thing that the Buddha says us or instructs us to do is to be mindfully breathe in and mindfully breathe out. Okay? Just be mindful when you breathe in and be mindful when you breathe out. Now, when you do this, your mind will be tranquilized. And it has the nature of bringing the calmness and bringing that serenity to your mind. So, mindfulness will lead you to practice the samadhi. Samadhi means the tranquilized nature of your mind, peacefulness in your mind. And also as the final practice, it is the prajna or the panya in Buddhism. Prajna or panya is the realization of the true nature of life. Realization of the 3 marks of existence in life. So what are the 3 marks of existence in life? First one is anicca, the nature of impermanence. Second one is dukkha, the nature of unsatisfiedness or the nature of suffering. And the third one is anatta, the nature of non-self. Now, to do this, to realize this true nature, you need to have a good wisdom. To have a good wisdom, you have to have a good practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness helps you to focus your mind into one part of your life. And it's very easy to realize the true nature, the impermanence nature, once the mind is mindful and tranquilized. It's something like this. Let's say you're traveling in a train, okay? And you see all the sceneries in a very fast paced, and it's more like a motion blurred version. We don't see the real images. Okay, everything is blurred. So to realize and to see what the real nature and the real sceneries of around us, what we have to do, we have to get down from the train. We have to come into one place and to see and to enjoy that one nature of the life. So to do that, what we have to do, we have to come into one place and to focus on one thing at a time. To do that, the mindfulness helps us. And finally, how mindfulness helps us to practice the wisdom or the prajna. So the prajna is the ability to realize the true nature of our life. The true nature of our life is the impermanence. And the true nature of the existence is these 3 marks of existence. The impermanence nature, and the suffering nature, and the non-self nature. So to realize these 3 natures, what we have, we need to have a tranquilized mind and a well-focused mind and a good awareness. So practice of mindfulness will help us to bring the awareness to our life. So that will help us to bring more wisdom and to see the life in a more wiser way and a more profound way by practicing the mindfulness. So this is how the practice of mindfulness helps us to be more productive in Buddhist practice. So let's all practice this amazing practice of mindfulness in our life. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. It is quite easy to be patient and to be calm when the life goes smoothly. But where our real patience comes into test is in the middle of adversity. I know it is very difficult to practice patience for all of us. It is easier to say to be patient. It is easier to advise to be patient, but it is easy to, and also it is easy to talk about patience, but to practice this quality, it is really, really challenges for every one of us. So although it is difficult, although it is challenging, we have to practice this amazing quality that brings the happiness and the calmness and peace to our life. So let's talk about how to practice patience according to Buddha's teachings. So in Buddhism, patience is considered as the greatest virtue. In Dhammapada, verse number 184, the Buddha says, patience is the highest virtue. The Buddhas say that Nibbana is supreme. And the one who harms others is not a monk. And one who destroys others is not a monk. So in Buddhism, a bigger space and a bigger value is given to the patience and to practice the patience as the practice of patience as an inner quality. Not just to talk about it, not just to read about it or to learn about it, but the real practice. So in Buddhism, the greatest quality in Buddhism, the greatest virtue is considered as the patience also. So what exactly is patience? The Buddha describes this as follows. And what's the patience practice? It is when a bhikkhu endures cold, heat, hunger, and thirst. They endure the touch of flies, mosquitoes, wind, sun, and reptiles. They endure rude and unwelcome criticism, and they put up with physical pain, sharp, severe, acute, and unpleasant, disagreeable, and life-threatening. This is called the patience practice. In another sutta, the Buddha explains about the patience as follows. What is the patient practice? It is when someone abuses, annoys, or argues with you, and you don't abuse, annoy, or argue back at them. This is called the patience practice. So being able to put up with ups and downs and challenging situations and disagreeable experiences in life is called patience. But to be honest, it is really difficult to be patient. Yes, it is difficult. It is going to be difficult, and it will be always difficult. It will never be easy, because that's the nature of all good practices in life. The Buddha said, what brings the happiness to your life? To practice such qualities is the most difficult thing that you have to do in your life. But although it is difficult, we all have to practice this amazing quality of being patient. Now, in Buddhism, being silent, tolerating, and enduring everything out of fear does not mean the real patience. In Buddhism, the real patience comes with a deeper meaning of life. When someone has a deeper meaning of his life, and when someone knows the true nature of life, then it's very easy for that person to be patient and to practice the amazing quality of patience. Normally, when we tolerate and when we become silent, the reason why we become silent is because of the fear. Sometimes we have no choice to do anything, right? In that case, we become silent. But the Buddha says that that is not the true patience. Someone can see such kind of a person and say, oh, he is patient. But that's not the true patience, because that person doesn't have the power. That person doesn't have the authority to do something, right? So being patient out of fear is not the true patience. The Buddha says about the real patience like this. In Vepachiti Sutta, it is mentioned, when a person endowed with strength patiently endures a weakling, they call that the supreme patience. The weakling must be patient always. So the real patience comes when you understand that there is the beast inside you. What is that beast? The anger. And if you're afraid of that anger, and if you're afraid of that beast to control your life, and if you can be patient in that situation by controlling your emotions and controlling your thoughts and controlling your anger and deciding to not to harm that person, that is called the true patience and the real patience. To practice such kind of a patience, you have to do a great dedication. Sometimes you have to go through a lot of hardships. You have to endure a lot. But still, why you become patient? Because you believe that being patient is the greatest virtue that you can practice in life. And you believe that you are much more better than them. And you have a better qualities than them. If you believe in that, you can truly be patient. To practice patience, the Buddha offers us a path of thinking in a more deeper level of understanding through our life. So suppose a person comes to you and treat you with rude words, right? Or treat you with their meanness. How can you avoid that situation without even worrying? How to do that? So the Buddha teaches us to look at this situation through the 3 marks of existence. So what are 3 marks of existence? So the Buddha says the 3 marks of existence are anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So anicca. Anicca is the understanding about the impermanence. So the Buddha said that everything in life is subjected to change. If you look at our life, there is nothing that we can hold on to and think and find that is not subjected to change. So once you understanding this intrinsic nature or the inherent nature of impermanence, it's very easy to let go of that anger and to be patient. Because let's say someone blamed you or someone treated you with rude words, okay? Right at the moment that you heard that voice, those words, they became impermanent, right? But here's the problem. Why does we hear the same thing again and again, what they said in our mind, and we keep creating that chain of thought, and we keep creating that anger in our mind? Because the mind has the nature to recreate everything that we heard or what we experienced. Okay, so we think that they abused me, they hurt me, and they treated me with these rude words, so I should not be treated like this. But in reality, those words had been impermanent now. They have been vanished. For an example, the words that you heard from me before, now everything has been vanished. They don't exist. That's the reality of life. But once you're understanding this true and intrinsic nature of impermanence, it's very easy to let go of the anger because you don't find anything to hold on to now. What is the word that we have to hold on to now in this moment to be angry? No, it has gone. So once you understand this true nature of impermanence, it's very easy to practice patience. And the second thing that we have to understand is dukkha. Dukkha often refers to as suffering. So the Buddha said that the pain and suffering is a part of our life. So you cannot remove that. We have to face that situation, okay? Because that is the nature of living. The nature of life is, it is always connected or characterized by the pain or suffering. This is not to worry about the pain or the suffering, but to see it as a part of life and accept it, learn to be with it, learn to deal with it. That is how we can understand the suffering. And the final thing that we have to realize and understanding is the nature of anatta. The nature of anatta is the nature of not self or non-self, right? The Buddha says that there are things in your life that are out of your control. Not every time you're going to have everything according to your wishes. Okay, there are things that are out of our range of control. Once we understand this true nature of anatta or non-self, it is really easy to accept the truth in life. And it is very easy to not to worry about the things that we cannot control. So if you look at the life, if you look at the situations in your life, in these 3 marks of existence, the Buddha said that it is really easy to practice the patience. It is really easy to love people, to give your kindness to people, because we know that we are not going to last forever, and we know that they are not going to last forever. What they did was not going to last forever. What they said was not going to last forever. So we can let go of the anger and we can move on. So these are the few things and few realizations that will help us to practice the patience in your life. So keep this in your mind and be patient. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. In Buddhism, there is a practice called Sila. Sila is the way of self-discipline and moral conduct and virtuous behavior. So let's talk about Sila from this video. So fundamentally, all Buddhists practice 5 precepts. These 5 precepts are abstaining from killing beings, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from telling lies, and abstaining from using intoxicating drinks and drugs. So these are the 5 precepts that all laymen and laywomen practice. And on Poya days or full moon Poya days and full moon days, which is a special day for all Buddhists, they practice 8 precepts. And for a novice monk or a junior monk, they get 10 precepts to practice. And for a senior monk or a higher ordained monk, they have 227 precepts to practice. So a lot of disciplinary codes and a lot of precepts and a lot of, you might think, a lot of rules, right? This is a complaint that most of the time that I hear from people who are new to Buddhism. They say, oh, there are a lot of rules, there are a lot of disciplinary codes, and there are a lot of restrictions. It kind of steals my freedom. But here's the thing. Buddhist precepts are not meant to be rules. They are not rules. They are self-disciplinary virtues that Buddha introduced to practice to keep the mind out of regret and to keep the mind more wholesome, to bring the mind to a more wholesome state. So why did Buddha introduce these practice as a sila or a disciplinary, these virtues or moral conducts or precepts? Why did he do that? The reason is the Buddha realized when someone engaged in such activities like breaking a precept, it accumulates bad karma or unwholesome karma. And what unwholesome karma leads to? That leads to suffering or regret. For an example, if someone kills animals or kill living beings, that needs to, he must create a lot of unwholesome intentions like violence, cruelty, and harmful thoughts, right? So these thoughts will lead to harmful results or suffering. The Buddha said that intention is the karma. Chetanahang bhikkhave kammang vadami. Monks, I say, the intention is the karma. So as intention is the karma, if someone generates more unwholesome intentions, then he will accumulate more unwholesome karma, which leads to unwholesome results or suffering as a result. So the Buddha said, it is much better to stay away from these actions which leads to suffering in life. And that is why Buddha introduced Sila as a practice to be disciplined from your body and from your words, to live a life of less regret, right? So most of the time, people, when they commit or when they do these such offenses, or I would say when they do such unwholesome actions, what is the final result? It leads to the regret, right? They think like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. maybe after a long time, they will think like, I shouldn't have done that. To stay away from that regret, to stay away from your mind complaining to yourself that you're a bad person, you did this bad thing, to stay away from that, the Buddha said, be disciplined. Live a life of self-discipline, or live a virtuous life. That is why Buddha introduced these precepts as Sila. And also remember that if someone breaks such a precept, there is not a person or there is not any God who is going to punish that person. Buddha is not coming to punish you, okay? So if someone breaks the precepts, the Buddha introduced a way to make it correct, okay? If you did a mistake, the Buddha said that it is okay to do mistakes. Mistakes can happen, but you have to correct that mistake. Understand that mistake as a mistake, okay? Understand that offense as an offense and correct it. The way to correct an offense or a mistake is to be open up. Do not hide that offense. Do not keep that mistake in your life and hide it and cover up and live like pretend to be a good person. The Buddha said, if you did an offense, be opened up. Tell it to a wise person who can understand you and who can forgive you. Tell it to that person and free your mind. Okay? That is why in monk's tradition, usually in monk's disciplinary codes, if a monk did an offense, or it is called apatti in monk's tradition, if apatti has happened, a mistake has happened, the way that we can correct that mistake is to go to a brother monk or a spiritual companion and to be open up to him, to say that I did this offense, this mistake has happened within me, so I'm going to correct it. I'm trying my best to protect and to be disciplined hereafter. And that is the way that we correct our mistakes. So you may be wondering, what is the use of practicing Sila or being disciplined? So in Kimattiya Sutta, the Buddha explained this to Venerable Ananda. Venerable Ananda asked from the Buddha, Bhante, what is the purpose and benefit of wholesome, virtuous behavior, which is Sila? The Buddha says, Ananda, the purpose and benefit of wholesome, virtuous behavior is non-regret. By practicing Sila, it leads to non-regret. And what is the purpose and benefit of non-regret? The purpose and benefit of non-regret is joy. And what is the purpose and benefit of joy? The purpose and benefit of joy is rapture, is more spiritual pleasure. And what is the purpose and benefit of rapture? The purpose and benefit of rapture is tranquility. And what is the purpose and benefit of tranquility? The purpose and benefit of tranquility is pleasure. And what is the purpose and benefit of pleasure? The purpose and benefit of pleasure is concentration. And what is the purpose and benefit of concentration? The purpose and benefit of concentration is the knowledge and vision of things as they are, the realization of reality. And what, Bhante, is purpose and benefit of the knowledge and vision of the things as they are? The purpose and benefit of knowledge and vision of things as they are is disenchantment and dispassion. And what is the purpose and benefit of disenchantment and dispassion? The purpose and benefit of disenchantment and dispassion is the knowledge and vision of liberation. So the whole practice, whole steps leads to the liberation. So one must practice the Buddhist precepts to find the liberation, which we call vimukti in Buddhist tradition. So being disciplined, it will make you liberate. So someone can think being disciplined and having these disciplinary codes will lead to like restricted life, more difficult life, more boring life. Someone can say, usually people say that, oh, monks' life is so boring. They have a lot of things to, like a lot of restrictions and a lot of rules to practice. It is difficult, it is boring. Actually, the monk's life is so interesting and more enjoyable and more happy, because so many things, like you haven't tried this. That is why some people think that this is boring. But this is one life that one can enjoy very much, and which is very peaceful. So always remember, by being disciplined, you can free your mind. And that is why we believe that discipline leads to the freedom. So that is why in Buddhism, it is practiced the Sila, or the self-discipline. So this is a little information about Sila, or the practice of self-discipline in Buddhism. So I hope you got some idea about this. So let's meet in the next video. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to another video. We all know that it is really, really difficult to find our own mistakes and our own faults and correct them. But it is really easy to point out other people's mistakes and find other people's faults. This is one lesson that my parents taught me when I was a child. They said, "Son, when you point one finger towards others, there are 3 fingers pointing at you." Sometimes there are many mistakes in ourselves, but we keep on finding other people's faults, other people's mistakes. But we all know that we should stop finding faults in others, but it is really difficult. Why is it difficult? It is because of this habit, the mental pattern of finding faults in others. Luckily, this is a habit which we can change, which we can take control and stop it. So there are a few things that we have to understand and we have to realize to stop finding faults on others and be more focused on ourselves. In Dhammapada, verse number 50, the Buddha says, "Na paresang vilomani, na paresang katakatang, attano avikeya, katani akatani cha." One should not find other people's faults. One should not find what good or bad others have done or not have done. Rather, one should find what mistakes and what good or bad things that one has done or has not done. So this is how to be focused on ourselves. Once you realize that no one in this world is perfect, then it is very easy to understand about why they make mistakes and why people keep doing wrong things. Most of the time, we used to complain why they are doing this, right? Why people are behaving like this? Why can't they behave like me? Why can't they be like me? But turns out that no one can be like you. Do not expect people to be like you. Okay? People are people. People are different, one person to another, and that is what makes this human life and human world so much beautiful, because there is this vibrant difference between people. In each and every human-made thing, there is an error. So back in those days when we were learning physics, we used to calculate all the things and measurements, and when we are doing it, we calculate one thing that is called the human error. Okay, what is it? The human error. That means the nature of humans is that there is an error always. And that error is not a bad thing. It is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it is the most beautiful thing in this world. Okay, so understand that no one is perfect and no one can be like you and no one can behave according to all the way that you want. Because people are living in their own worlds, in their own lives. They have their own dislikes and likes. So they live according to those intentions and emotions. So we have to understand that no one is perfect in this world. And also understand that everyone is struggling in this life, right? There is this unsatisfied nature in everyone's life. Isn't it? This is one thing that we have to understand. This is one of the major teachings in Buddhism. The Buddha says that realize that there is this unsatisfied nature in your life. right? Understand it as it is. And once you realize that there is this unsatisfied nature in your mind, you can relate it to other people as well. Same as I am unsatisfied and same as I am suffering in my life, other people's are also suffering. Other people's are also struggling in their life. So they will make mistakes. They will do wrong things. So these are the things that we have to understand, just to not to find faults on others, but to rather be focused on our mistakes and our doings and non-doings. So understand these things. And also, there's one thing. Now, by saying this, should you forget all the mistakes that other people do and just focus on yourself? I would say no. Because there are people in your life that you should find faults. You should care about the mistakes that they do. They are the people who live closely to your life. They are the people who love you most. They are the people who you love most. Always remember, when you see such people's mistakes, there is a way to correct them. Okay? It is okay to find the faults on those people, but there is a way to approach them. There is a way to correct them. Do not choose the easiest way to correct other people's mistake. What is the easiest way? Using the anger and using the violence to correct mistakes on other people. This is not a productive way. If you truly love someone, if you truly care about other people's life, their life, you should approach them to correct their mistake in a more productive way. So you should think, what is the most productive way that I can correct their mistakes? Not to just to hold on to not to make them hold on to their own mistakes and keep on doing it. Not just to make them more stubborn on their mistake. So when you consider about that, you find the easiest way and you find the correct way to approach them. The best way to correct someone's mistake is to speak to them privately, not in publicly. Speak to them privately and just explain what mistakes that they are doing. Okay? And explain the consequences of the mistakes. And also, you have to praise and you have to appreciate the good things that they do. The more you see the good side and the bright side of the people, it is very easy to approach them and correct their mistakes. The more we see the negative side or the dark side of the people, here's one thing happen. You lose the ability to communicate. Because we are reminiscing and we just keep thinking about that or the negative idea or the negative point of that person and just forget about the strengths and all the abilities of that person that we can praise and we can appreciate. And by appreciating that, we can correct that little mistakes in them. So that is why just be more focused on the good side and the bright side of the people. So keep these points in your mind and live happily by seeing the good of other people and by seeing the wonder of this world. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to today's video. What should we do when we have been criticized? Now, no matter how good we are, no matter how talented we are, okay, no matter how skillful we are, we've been criticized and we all will be criticized even in the future. Okay, no matter how good things that you do to this society, there are people who will not agree with you, who will see you as someone who is like a bad person. So it's okay to be like that. It's okay for people to not to understand you. So how can we deal with this criticism? Now, when it comes to criticism, there are two types, right? The first type of criticism is the constructive criticism. That means if someone is criticizing you to improve yourself, to make yourself more successful, okay? For someone who is looking for your happiness and for your successfulness, may criticize you for the good, okay? But there is the other type of criticism, and that is the negative criticism, okay? People sometimes when they cannot understand you, people when they are jealous of you, they may criticize you to put you down. So how can we deal with it? Now, I found this wonderful story in Buddhism that teaches you something about criticism. in the past, in the Buddhist time, a group of people went to a monastery and they wanted to meet some monks. So first of all, they went to a monk and he was living kind of a silent and very secluded life. He didn't prefer to talk much. So they went to him and they met with him and asked to preach some teachings in Buddhism. But this monk was so silent, so he used to stay silent, maybe talk a few words and didn't give much information, right? So they start to criticize that monk, saying like, this monk is staying silent. Why he doesn't know anything, right? So they start to criticize. And they went to the other monk to meet, and that monk had a good idea and good way of explanations, and he knew about very deep teachings of Buddhism. And that monk explained very deep and profound teachings in Buddhism. So they could not understand that. Then what they did was they started to criticize, oh, he teaches very complex things and we cannot understand anything. Teach us something simple, right? So they criticized that monk as well. Then they went to the next monk and he was using very simple ideas and very simple ways of explanation to them. And he was explaining the Buddhism in a more simpler way, right? Then that group of people start to criticize that monk as well. Oh, he's being always simple and superficial and using these simple things we all can understand. Teach us something complex and teach us something deep. Now, all these three monks was confused, like, why do they do it like this? So they went to meet the Buddha. These three monks went to meet the Buddha and informed this incident. Then the Buddha said, no matter you stay silent, no matter you teach complex stuff or like profound stuff, or no matter you use simple words to speak, you will always be criticized by people. That's the nature of this world. No one has never been criticized in this world. Okay? So that is why we have to understand criticism is something that we all face in all of our lives. One thing that you have to be okay with is that for people to not to understand you. Okay? Not every person can understand you. Not every person can comprehend that what you are doing. As long as you're doing good, as long as you're doing something helpful for yourself and others, then keep on doing it, whether you've been criticized or not. So that is what we have to have. That is the view that we have to have on the criticism. If you're doing something good, keep on doing it. Do not ever stop being a good person and doing good because of people who cannot understand you. Keep that in your mind. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to today's video. Today, I want to share with you how can we deal with accusations in life. Now, there are two types of accusations. The first one is the true accusation, and the second one is the false accusation. Now, no matter how good we are, no matter how better in life we are, mistakes can happen and people can accuse us. So how can we deal with this? Now, in Buddhism, it teaches you when you have been accused in any kind of way, whether it is a true accusation, whether it is a false accusation, you have to establish two qualities in your mind. Okay? What are these two qualities? In Buddhism, it teaches you have to establish the truthfulness in your mind. Okay? You have to be truthful. The second one is you have to be kind at that time. You have to establish the love and kindness at that time. Now, why should we practice and why should we establish these two qualities? Most of the time, when we have been falsely accused, one of the things that we lose is our kindness and our patience. We become panicked and we try to prove ourselves that we are not wrong, we are right, and we use anger and we use that rudeness to prove ourselves that we are right. But when you become so much panicked and whenever you use your anger and hate to prove yourself right, it's very unproductive and it becomes very unsuccessful in proving that, because most of the time people will never listen to you when you're angry, and people will never listen to you when they are angry. as well. So that is why in Buddhism it teaches you first thing that one of the best things that you can do is to be kind and to be patient when you are being accused. And the second quality is to establish your mind in truthfulness. Now, what do you mean by that? Let's say you've been accused for a mistake that you have done. Okay. Sometimes we don't like to accept that we have done a mistake. Okay. So at that time we lie and we say like, no, we didn't do that. I didn't do that. But in Buddhism, it teaches you if you have done a mistake, just accept it and make it correct. Try to correct yourself. Okay. And if you have not done it, you have to clearly say, and patiently with kindness and compassion, you have to clearly say that I didn't do it. Okay. So in that way, you have to establish the truthfulness in your mind. These are the two qualities that we have to practice and you have to develop when we have been accused in any kind of way. So when we add these wonderful two qualities to your life, you try this and see the difference that you get from the accusations. When you accept the mistake that you have done, you gain the trust of the people around you. Okay, so it is very important to practice these simple two qualities in your life. Practice these things and be happy. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. I need to ask a question from you. Do you really exist? Now, have you ever thought of this question? It sounds like a funny question, right? Do you really exist? And do I really exist? Now, this was a question that was asked from the Buddha on point, but the Buddha refused to give any answer to this question. Buddha kept silent to this question. The reason why the Buddha kept silent was not because he did not know about anything about this, but the Buddha said that by answering these kind of questions will lead to a lot of wrong views. It will lead to a lot of problems. Okay. Now, for an example, if one said like, okay, I do not exist or you do not exist, then there will be many questions and many problems. Then it will lead to many problems like, okay, if I do not exist, then who is the person who is experiencing all those karma? And who is the person who is being reborn? Okay. And also, if I don't really exist, what's the point of doing good and bad things? Right? There's no point of doing good and there's no point of doing bad. Okay. And there's no point of becoming kind to people. And there's no point of helping people. So it will lead to many problems and many ethical dilemmas by answering these kinds of questions. And that is why the Buddha refused to give answers on point and directly to these kind of questions. But the Buddha explained that who you are, okay? That's what Buddha focused on. So the Buddha said that by answering these kinds of questions, by saying that you don't exist, you fall into one extreme, and that is called nihilism or complete annihilation. Now, one of the complaints that Buddha got in his time was the people complained him that he was a complete annihilator. Okay, he annihilates people by letting them into the nibbana. So people considered nibbana as a complete annihilation. But it is not a complete annihilation. The Buddha said that when you say that you don't exist, it falls under one extreme, and that is called nihilism, which was known as ucceda. And if you say that you exist, then it falls into the other extreme, and that is called the sarasvata or the eternalism. What Buddha teaches you is, what the Buddha says that my teachings lies in the middle. I teach you the middle way. What is the middle way? To find what you consider as who you are or true self, okay? And realize the nature of it. The Buddha did not say that you don't exist. The Buddha did not say that you exist. The Buddha said what one consider as self or I is subjected to change, right? Now, what we consider as I? We consider as I is our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, our body, and our mind. Okay, this is whom we call I. And also, what are the things that we called consider as ours, the things that we see, the things that we hear, the things that we smell, and the things that we taste, and the things that we physically feel, and the things that we think. So all those things together we called as I, or my things, okay, myself. So the Buddha said, just take a look at to these things, what you call self, and understand that all the things that you consider as yourself is subjected to change. It is ever changing. For an example, our eyes and our ears, nose, tongue, body, mind is ever changing, right? What we see in this world, what we experience in this world is subjected to change. Right here, right now, it is changing. So the Buddha said, what you consider as I or myself or mine is subjected to change. Then the Buddha said, if something is subjected to change, and that is suffering, okay, that leads to suffering. For an example, let's say we are having a good time and we are having good experiences and good feelings and happy feelings. So what we like to do, we like to feel, we like for them to be permanent. Okay, we like to feel good forever, but it is subjected to change. Okay, it is changing, and when it is changing, we suffer. And let's say we are having a bad experience or difficult experience, then with what we think is, okay, this pain, this suffering is going to last forever, but it is also subjected to change. So that is why the Buddha said, what you consider as you is subjected to change, and if something is subjected to change, it is suffering. And then Buddha said, if something is suffering, should it be considered as mine or I or myself? Turns out it is not. Why? Because if something is suffering, we should not consider it as ourselves. We don't like to consider it as ourselves, because as human beings, okay, as beings, we all like to be happy, not to suffer. Okay? And that is why the Buddha said, Buddha did not say that you do not exist. The Buddha did not say that you exist. The Buddha said, what you consider as yourself, what you consider as I, is subjected to change, and it is suffering. And then, as it is suffering, it should not be considered as self. Now, this whole concept is called anatta in Buddhism. Anatta, the word anatta, is oftenly translated as no self. But rather, when you take this word no self, right, it gives the meaning that you don't exist. That is why many people say, okay, the Buddha said that you don't exist. No, Buddha did not say that you do not exist. The Buddha said what you considered as I or you is not yourself. Okay, it should not be considered as yourself, and that is what the concept of anatta. Rather than saying no self, it's much better to say that it is not self. And this is the whole idea behind the concept of anatta in Buddhism. So I hope you learned something new today. I wish you all, may all of you be happy and healthy. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Welcome to today's video. Today, from this video, I want to share with you one of the most inspirational and one of the most controversial statements from the Buddha. The Buddha said, Attahi attano nato, kohi nato parosya, attanahi sudantena, nathang labati dullabha. The Buddha said, Attahi attano nato, oneself is one's own refuge. Kohi nato parosya, how can another person become the refuge of another person? With enough self-discipline, right? With thorough self-discipline, one can attain one's own refuge. Now, in life, sometimes we wait for other people to come and change our life, come and save our life. But the Buddha says that this is a sad news, but it is the truth, that no one is coming to save you but yourself. No one can save you but yourself, right? And that is what Buddha teaches you. Try to save yourself by yourself. Now, even the Buddha said, even I cannot save you. I'm not your salvator. The Buddha said that I'm not your salvator. I cannot save you. I can show you the path. I'm a teacher. I'm the guider, but I cannot ascend you to your happiness. I cannot take you to your happiness. The Buddha said that what I have done is showing you the path, right? But by yourself, through yourself, you have to walk the path alone. And that is why in Buddhism, it is all about exploring who you are through yourself, by yourself. Okay? And that is why we have to remember that we are all alone in this world. There is no one that can save us. There are people who can help us. There are people who can guide us, but there is a limit. For an example, if you are going through a tough time in life, let's say you are having anxiety or depression, people can help you. People can tell you what to do and what not to do, and they can guide you. But by yourself, by all means, by yourself, you have to deal with that problem. You have to go through that situation and you have to heal yourself. And that is why I believe, in Buddhism believe, that there is nothing in this life that can destroy you other than your thoughts. And there is nothing in this world that can save you and that can heal you other than your thoughts and how you live in your life. And that is why in Buddhism, it is more given a big space about the self-discipline, to be self-disciplined and to practice it and to explore who you really are. So always remember that no one is coming to save you but yourself. No one can save you but yourself. Keep this in your mind and keep practicing the good things. Namo Buddhaya. Buddha considered the gratitude and the gratefulness as the mother of all the good qualities. In Mahamangala Sutta, the Buddha says, having a grateful mind is a blessing for your life. Okay, so how can we practice this gratitude? And what is the meaning of gratitude? Now, the word that is given to gratitude, given for the gratitude in Buddhism is called katanyuta. Katanyuta means the ability to remember what one have done to you. That means the helps that have done to you. If you can remember the people and the helps that you have given, okay, people have done to you, then that is called the gratitude. So how can we practice this? Well, you can be grateful and you can be thankful for almost everything in your life. Let's say you take your food plate to your hand. You can practice gratitude in there. How? You can be grateful for the people who made that food. Maybe your wife, maybe your husband, maybe someone who helped you. Okay? So you can be grateful for them. You can say that, thank you. Okay, genuinely you can say that, thank you. I'm grateful for you. Okay? Because of you people, I live happily and I live in comfort in my life. In every morning, okay, take a little time to practice this gratitude in your life. Okay, wake up in the morning and say that I am thankful for my life. Okay, I am thankful for the people who lived around me, who helped me, okay, who was there with me in my life in the hardest times. And also in the same time, we can be happy about the tough times and bad people in our life too. Okay, so many people don't think about this because we become grateful for only for the good people and the good situations in our life. No, we can be grateful for the bad people and difficult situations in our life. How can we do that? Well, because of the bad people and because of the bad situations and tough situations in our life became so much interesting, right? Imagine if your life became all the things, like you got all the things you wanted, okay? And there were all the people who were good and nice to you, okay? You didn't face any tough situations in your life. There's nothing much interesting about your life. But because of the bad people and because of the tough situations and the bad days in our life became so much interesting, no? Because there's a story for us to tell. Okay, there is an interesting story for us to tell. That is why the more we face tough situations, our life becomes so much interesting. So we can be thankful for the bad people and say, like, thank you for giving me tough times. Thank you for giving me the ability to practice the patience and love and kindness and compassion for you because of you people. In that way, you can be, you see, if you think about it, you can be grateful for every situation and everything in your life. So every single day, when you wake up in the morning, take a little moment to say thank you for everything and every person in your life. So keep that in your mind and practice this wonderful quality of gratitude. Namo Buddhaya.